Janis Joplin was only 27 when she died, but she had one of the wildest sex lives in rock and roll history. In fact, she was described by some of her lovers as supersexual because of her willingness to jump on the bed with anybody. But the truth is, being a sex-crazed hippie isn't what Janis Joplin is proud of. In fact, the reason why she did what she did is one of the saddest parts of her life story we are going to share with you today. And looking back, the irony is that sex could have been the only thing that could have saved her life on the night she died. It may sound bizarre at first, but as you watch the video to the end, you'll start to understand why that is and how her dependence on alcohol and substance abuse was connected to her sex life. There's no denying it. Janis Joplin's sex life was wild and free and crazy. For instance, in the late 60s, her music producer, Milan Melvin, walked in on her while she was having an all-female sex party, according to Ranker. And oh yes, fun fact, Melvin wasn't just her music producer. He was her lover and her on and off again partner. The two had been in a fairly committed relationship for 2 years. Melvin even introduced Janis to his parents, who of course weren't too impressed with his wicked wild hippie girlfriend. When Melvin caught Janis during her lesbian adventure, she apparently just looked at him and said, "This is my life now." "Cool by me," he replied. In fairness, he must have seen it coming. In his own words, he described Janis as being supersexual. And she was. One of her other countless lovers once said that Janis really knew her way around a mattress. It's easy to think Janis's sexual freedom may have been a result of her upbringing. Maybe her parents were hippies too who taught free love? But on the contrary, her parents were quite strict and conservative Christians. By all means, they wanted their daughter to become a teacher. Yet, despite their prim and proper ambitions for their daughter, Janis was a right-out rebel early on. She became sexually active as a teenager and also started drinking around the same time. After crashing her father's car one night at age 17, she turned to booze to ease her anxiety and eventually became dependent on it. She would later also turn to heavy substance use, much for the same reasons. Like her substance habit, Janis's sex life was actually very much misunderstood. Yes, it was the 60s, the age of hippies and rock and roll, the age of sexual revolution and anti-establishment. But there was a much deeper and darker reason that Janis craved and needed both sex and narcotics. And in a strange twist of fate, you may say she lost her life as a result of both, or in a weird way, maybe sex was the one thing that could have saved her life on the night she died, but more on that a bit later. When it came to lovers, Janis didn't seem to be too picky. It's no secret that she bedded countless famous names like Kris Kristofferson, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Dick Cavett, and many, many more. There was, for example, Leonard Cohen, whom she happened to have run into on an elevator. He asked her if she was looking for someone. "Yes," she told him, and said she was looking for Kris Kristofferson. Cohen even wrote a song about their encounter and went a little something like this.
"I said, little lady, you're in luck. I'm Kris Kristofferson."
Obviously, Janis knew that Cohen wasn't Kristofferson, but nevertheless, they still wound up in bed together for a one-night stand. But she also had many random one-night stands with non-famous people too. What is also no secret is that Janis had several lesbian love affairs, some of which were pretty serious. Janis had a famous reputation for being very loud in bed, which was confirmed by many people close to her, some even thinking that she deliberately overperformed and exaggerated. Her sexual performance was even described by some as theatrical. Her close friend and roommate also once spilt the juicy beans, saying things got so loud and weird that she would just lie in bed and crack up while listening to the crazy sounds coming from Janis's room. And she wasn't the only roommate to say so. Bob Weir, one of the founding members of the band, the Grateful Dead, also had to suffer Janis's loud moaning. One of Bob's bandmates dated Janis for a while, and this is what Bob had to say about their escapades.
And so all night long it'd be, "Daddy, daddy, daddy," and all that kind of stuff.
But Janis was well aware of her reputation as a wild and noisy lover, as she once related it to a reporter. "I used to ask guys I was bawling, do I bawl like I sing? Is it really me, or am I putting on a show?" And sometimes she did put on a show out of pure chivalry. Janis was notorious not only for being loud in bed, but sometimes very quick too. Although, maybe that wasn't always by choice. Janis would sometimes fake her orgasms to spare the egos of her male lovers. Freda Sloat, one of Janis's college friends, recalled a funny story. "One of the guys said to me once, 'Well, it's great being with Janis because she orgasms in 30 seconds, so you don't ever feel like you've let her down.' But when Freda asked Janis about sleeping with the guy, Janis's response was pretty hilarious, telling her friend, "Aw man, you want to stay away from him? He's a 30-second wonder." There are many more other crazy stories too. One of her many scandalous and daring affairs was with Jim Morrison of The Doors. The band was in the same city as Janis and invited her and her friends out to dinner. With dinner over, Janis was apparently full of energy and up for some adult mischief. She invited everyone back to her apartment, including Jim and his longtime girlfriend, Pamela Corson. One thing led to another, and according to one biography, Janis and Jim sort of dragged each other into the bedroom. It should come as no surprise that Jim's girlfriend wasn't impressed. In fact, she left in tears. But Janis shouldn't bear the blame alone. According to one of Jim Morrison's many mistresses, he loved cheating on Pamela. The two had one of the most tumultuous relationships in rock history. They dated on and off from 1965 until Jim's death in 1971. Scary fact. Jim died less than a year after Janis, also from substance use, and he was also 27, just like Janis. And Jim's girlfriend passed away just 3 years later, also aged 27, and also as a result of substance use. Anyways, despite all the turmoil, Jim and Pamela's relationship was serious. She often even referred to him as her husband, but they both reportedly cheated on each other a lot. But taking it one step further, Jim supposedly loved it when Pamela caught him red-handed in the act, apparently getting a kick out of seeing her angry. And it makes sense that both Janis and Jim hopped into bed that night just to get a reaction out of his girlfriend, because the next time he tried his luck with Janis, she smacked him with a Southern Comfort bottle over the head. After that, Janis hated him. Janis's love life sounds wild and free, but was she really free? Or was she trapped in a never-ending search for something beautiful and meaningful? Those who knew her the best think so. There was a dark side to her love life, which may help explain why Janis was so willing and eager to jump into bed with just about anyone at all. To better understand it, we have to understand her traumatic childhood. In school, Janis was overweight and suffered from terrible acne that left her with bad scarring. As a result, she was teased relentlessly. Pig, freak, creep. These are just some of the things the other students shouted at her. And it didn't stop there. Since she was rebellious from an early age, she openly stood up against racism and segregation. With the political climate as it was during the 50s, Janis was also harassed by the far-right students. In college, things weren't all that much easier. She was nominated for Ugliest Man on Campus. Even though it was a joke and even though she didn't win, it still deeply hurt her. Then when she suddenly exploded onto the worldwide music stage, she felt loved for the first time and she finally found some sort of semblance of belonging. But despite the admiration and love from millions of fans, she never felt beautiful enough or good enough. Peggy Caserta, one of Janis's female lovers, believed that this was one of the reasons behind her crazy sex life. Janis was easy with guys because she felt so mistreated and thought she wasn't pretty. She always felt lucky if someone would sleep with her. Deep inside, Janis longed for more than just one-night stands. She wanted to belong, and she wanted to be loved. Friends close to her said that she wanted the white picket fence and she wanted children. But her love life was a double-edged sword, a never-ending loop of love affairs and rejection. Her openness and readiness to sleep with just about everyone portrayed her as a sex toy and not as serious relationship material. As one of her more serious lovers, Ramsey Wiggins, once explained, there were two kinds of relationships with Janis: sexual, which was earthy, unsweetened, predatory, and volatile, and friendship, which was more durable. Milan Melvin described her as, one side of her was pure tomboy, tough, scrappy, unwilling to take crap off anybody. The other side was China doll fragile, a person living in fear of further hurt. That is a powerful and insightful statement, one that some of Janis's other lovers agree with. Another of her female love interests, Jay Whitaker, once had this to say in response to Janis jumping from one male lover to the next. I'd ask her, how are you going to get this white picket fence and a child and everything when you pick up the worst guys on the street? She'd say, well, I will when I'm ready. And as for her attraction to other girls, it is a point too seldom discussed in articles and documentaries on the life and times of Janis Joplin. Her bisexuality was a big part of who she was, but it is often brushed under the carpet as if it was just an experimental phase for her. The sad truth, according to Whitaker, is that Janis was deeply ashamed of her bisexuality. She really felt very good with a woman, yet she punished herself for that feeling. She didn't think it was right. Some argue that it was her overwhelming guilt that kept pushing her to drinking, substance use, and self-destructive behavior. Janis was found dead in her hotel room in October 1970 as a result of apparent substance use. But what is the real story behind it? Was it bitter irony, fate, or does the world have a cruel sense of humor? That night, Janis had supposedly planned to have a threesome with her then-fiancé, Seth Morgan, and one of her female lovers, Peggy Caserta. Unfortunately for Janis, they both abandoned her that night and she was left to entertain herself. So, Janis turned to her old habits and it cost her her life. But who knows? If her two lovers did show up for their supposed planned threesome, Janis may have survived that night and might have gone on to be the rock superstar she was destined to be. Sadly though, her drink and substance habits caught up with her and her life was cut short way too soon. Do you think Janis Joplin would have ever found peace or happiness had she still been alive? Or was it always her destiny to die young and join the rest of the 27 Club like Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse, and more, who all died at the age of 27? If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.